So hi everybody and welcome. Today we are going to be talking all about the weekly planning and review system that you absolutely need so you can get out of overwhelm, or your leaders on your team can get out of that drowning state out into that overflow, thriving, energized, big picture, strategic, creative, innovative state. So I know that it can be easy to get lost in the to-dos, in all of the emails, the meetings, the needs from your teams, all of the projects that you have in your mind all swirling around. And so what I've developed actually over the few years myself for my own use is a really good foundation to setting up the basics of your week, your day, and your month. And so by doing this, I find it really gives a really strong foundation and structure to how you show up every day so that you can be fluid and react to any crises that come up, or last minute projects, or changes in staff on your team, all of these kinds of things that can happen and really throw us off. You want to be able to have a strong foundation so you can withstand these changes. So today, this is going to be, I think, part 2 in our series of the Empowered Leader Planning series. So if you want to follow along, I actually have a free Empowered Leader monthly planning guide that I'll put the link below, and you're welcome to download that for free, and it will share with you the actual kind of worksheets that we're going to be looking at today. And if you don't want to do that, that's great. You can always just do this individually on your own. I use these printouts, but I also use a planner. Sometimes I just do it on a plain sheet of paper. But having a consistent routine and a consistent location and process that you follow will make this much more routine and seamless, really, as you move into the fall and winter season by having this strong structure. So stay tuned and we'll talk about all of that. So the whole idea around this Empowered Leader Planning Kit was really because I found not only myself in my own executive positions in the past, where I was getting so many emails, more than I can handle in a day, had staff to deal with, executive corporate challenges that we were working through, all of these kinds of things were putting so much pressure, right? And so I was finding that I really needed to get organized to really manage it all well. And if all I did was sit down and open up my email and kind of go through my email, it felt like it was chaos all the time. And then when I've started working with clients, coaching clients, they had similar problems, right? It's really easy to get lost in the stuff to do, even if it's a big, exciting things. You know, you've got a great project, you're making impact with your company in your business, if you've grown the business, or you're the CEO, or maybe you're in a non-for-profit organization, whatever it is. These things are simple, but the basics are what allows us to really show up as our masterful selves. And so if you're able to pull back and you're able to get a strategic viewpoint, then it's going to really make a difference in how you show up every day, in the way you guide your teams, and all of that. I remember years ago, I went to the University of British Columbia for a strategic planning, strategic leadership training. I actually got a certificate there in strategic leadership. And they had a manager from one of the Canadian banks here come and speak to us. And this manager was saying that they actually ended up firing any of their leaders that didn't do time for strategic thinking weekly. And at first I thought, whoa, that's pretty severe. Like, wait a second. But I understood. And the reason why they said that is because without strategic leadership, without that strategic perspective, you can't do your job properly. And so that's my message for you today, is if you're not carving out time every week to think strategically about not only your personal tasks, but the tasks of your team and the tasks of your organization, the actual strategic planning vision that you have, plus how are you going to implement that into what you're doing day to day, how are you going to guide your teams, then you are really not a fully empowered leader, honestly, if I can be frank. And I know that you're here, you're in this Exhale and Thrive community because you believe in having a positive impact, because you are a high achiever, because you're a talented leader, you're passionate, you want to have really be a visionary leader and show up with a positive impact in the world, in your teams, mentor and uplift those around you, all of that stuff. And so these are some of the key routines and habits that will get you there. So let's just jump right in. So I think we're going to start today with weekly planning. So we're also going to talk about monthly and daily planning next, but I want to do weekly first, because if you don't have the weekly kind of plan set out, I find I miss stuff. So some of the things that happen if you don't have your weeks if you haven't taken time at the beginning of the week to look at it, I've had missed appointments or conflict of schedule, like double bookings that I need to address. And because I've looked at the week, I'm able to do that. I also am able to kind of plot out my priorities for the week and when and where those are going to happen. I'm able to kind of see, well, where's my kind of focus time? Where's my really crunch time? And then I can even plan my meals accordingly, that kind of thing. So really looking at your schedule for the week is really powerful. And when I don't do it, things don't flow as well. I end up being late for appointments. Like I said, sometimes I double book myself and then it's a last minute rush to address things, that kind of thing. So by taking the time to do this, it really helps. The other thing that I found that really made a difference when I was doing this with my staff, when I had a team of people that I was looking at managing, was I also then created time to connect with them through the week. And we're going to get more detail into that in the daily schedule part. But today, let's talk about the weekly plan. So it's really the 2 steps, I'd say, or 3 steps would be, the first step would be planning and reviewing your week ahead. So like I mentioned, so I like to look at a couple different aspects. I look at my personal requirements. So whatever personal appointments or activities, we have family or we're hosting dinners, or there's appointments with my daughter or myself. Where do those all fall on the schedule? Then I look at my work, my day job work, my business coaching work, and my volunteer director and board work, and look at those obligations through the week, plot those all out. So what I'm doing is actually have one then standard calendar that has all of those obligations in one spot. So if you're wanting to use the Empowered Leader Monthly Planning Kit piece, then that piece is, let me just pull it out for you. Actually have a fun little 1-page weekly schedule that you can use. And so if you wanted, if you're actually meeting people in person, you could carry this with you, or it's just a nice, real good glance. So there's no times on here. This is basically what you would put your high priority tasks, the must-dos, medium priority, and then the low priorities would be like the big rocks, medium rocks, small rocks. Which ones are you going to do and most important? Then your daily objectives. This is where you could plot out your hours. Honestly, I have more appointments than would fit in here, so I use a different tool at this point. But this could be, you could objectives, so more task related, or you could use this as an appointment kind of tracker. I do that actually in a day timer instead, because I need that bigger pages for actually plotting out all my clients that I see in all my appointments. But here I could and do put my tasks kind of per day here. So what you could do is you could take your overall tasks for the week, and then you can kind of slot them out on your page. What I also do is I actually use my calendar as my kind of to-do list as well. And so when I have tasks that must get done in a day, I'll actually plunk them in my calendar. So I block out that time for that focused task, which makes a big difference. And then one of the things I found I struggled when I had a team was the delegation tracking. And so I would delegate, but then, with everything going on, sometimes I would forget to follow up until it was maybe later than it should be. And so I found looking at things regularly, what are the delegation pieces that I need to think about? Who do I need to follow up with? When are some key deadlines? All of that stuff is really important. And then any of the next week objectives, just kind of plan ahead. And then I've also got in here these sort of weekly, monthly action items, to-do list, and delegation follow-up if you wanted to go further and deeper into that. So you're looking at your time obligations, looking at your priorities and kind of the action steps that you have to take. And then the second half would be really the reflection on the week. But before we do that, I also want to mention that when you are looking at your schedule, like, you can deconflict or adjust things as you need to, because you're looking at things ahead of time. So take whatever actions that you need to after you've done that initial weekly review right away, and then you'll be able to move forward well into a nicely planned week. So the second step will be at the end of the week, and I normally do this on a Friday, and that's really about taking time to reflect on how the week went. What went well? What do you want to celebrate? What didn't get done or didn't go well, and then why? And then really take time to integrate that in. So I know as high achieving folks really like to look at what's the next goal, where are we growing further, how can we expand and do better and better. And this is great, and this is really helps us build our level of excellence in our own work and that of our teams and our organization. But what can be easily forgotten, and this is a big secret that I'll pass on to you today, is taking time to also celebrate, to acknowledge all of the progress we have made, to notice all of the impact that we are creating in our day-to-day work now, not just in the future, what we're growing towards, but what's currently been happening too. And so by taking the time to reflect at the end of the week really helps you do that. And then you can bring that into your staff and your team as well. Maybe you want to do that as a group. Maybe you want to reflect and then come back and say, hey guys, I really want to just acknowledge the work that you've done. And because of this area, we have now made this kind of impact. And you can't be that kind of leader if you're not doing that first for yourself. So that is actually, I have a weekly review little checklist integration form here. And so it's a weekly reflect and integration form. So the questions are accomplishments and things you'd like to celebrate, what didn't happen and why, and lessons learned and what you'd do differently. And what I would take from that, like I mentioned, would be then how are you going to bring that forward to the people that you work with? Maybe you want to take a moment or two to send some congratulations to somebody. Maybe you want to celebrate. Maybe you want to write a handwritten thank you note. I have thank you notes on my desk and I keep them for months. You know, it can be easy, I think, to forget the value of the simple things. A handwritten note in a beautiful card means so much. And it's one of the 5 love languages. And words of affirmation are one of the ways you can recognize your people without any cost, right? Maybe a little bit of cost on a card. You know, you can do it in email too, but there's something really special about a tangible card and handwritten that I think is a beautiful art that we kind of have lost a lot in this sort of email age. But that's something for a whole nother video. If you have tips on how you like to recognize and celebrate people in your life, whether it's on your teams, your colleagues, and your personal life, I'd love to hear that in the comments. And then the third piece is really, like I mentioned, figure out what needs to be done. So you've looked at your tasks, you looked at what your schedule actually looks like now, and then is there anything you need to add or block time for into your week? So maybe you need to do some time in evenings. I find evenings is when I do a lot of my board work. So when and where am I going to slot that in, for example? That's something I need to work on this week. And so taking the time to make space for that ahead of time, you're setting that intention. So when that time actually comes, you've already planted the seed that this is what you're going to be doing. And there's a real also secret. So secret number 2 of the video today is about using intention in that way. So for example, I knew I was going to be videoing this series. And because I knew that was going to happen, since I initially decided to do that, I've now been kind of planning and being creative in my mind. So then when I come to actually sit down and do that thing, I've already been thinking about it and already know what I want to do. And so it's really powerful when you can approach your time and your schedule and your priorities in this way, so that you'll be extremely efficient in a short amount of time, because you've given yourself that intention and that preparation time off camera or behind the scenes or whatever you want to call it, really getting ready for that experience. And so that's all I want to share with you today about weekly planning. I know when I have done this myself, I do it every week. When I miss it, things don't work well. I end up rushing. I end up kind of overwhelmed and feeling kind of chaotic because I'm just going with whatever comes at me in work and life. And it really leaves me feeling in that kind of anxious, stressed state. So if ever you're feeling that way, maybe it's time to pull back and reconnect to these basic foundational routines that can really set you up to be your thriving self. So I found when I have helped my coaching clients do this, that anxiety goes away really quickly. But once that anxiety is gone, then they have this piece where they can start to fill into this strategic mindset, right? You're pulling back and out of the tasks, up and out, even if you want to call it that, and you can see a more strategic picture. And it is transformational. It's magical. It's amazing what can happen when you have time to pause, to pull back, to look at things from a different perspective, and then come back in again and do the doing, do the leading, do the whatever it is that you need to be doing that week. So I'm super excited to share this with you. I don't think I've formally ever done a training on this topic before. So I really would love to hear your thoughts on it and what your tips are if you do other things within your weekly planning that you think others need to know. It would be great to share that with each other. And I haven't introduced myself in one of these videos for a while. So if you're new here, if you haven't gotten to know me yet, I'm Sarah Francescuti, and I'm a leadership mindset coach, really. I focus on executive leadership, and I help corporate organizations, not-for-profit, government, and private businesses really get their leaders from that survive mode to thriving. I've recently had the opportunity to work with the Arthritis Society over a period of a number of years, and it's been really neat to work with them in both that strategic piece with the organization itself, as well as their leaders within it. And so sharing these types of routines can really make a difference in how the leaders then can show up, right? So I really invite you to try this for a month, see how it works, tweak it to make it work for you, or don't use everything I do. It's, my own process evolves over time, depending on my roles and the time of my life. And so I invite you to make it your own. Pick what works, leave what doesn't. And what I encourage you to do, though, is to set the time aside. So the final piece would be actually protect the time in your calendar. So I have a reoccurring meeting with myself every Monday morning for an hour, where it's my weekly planning. And if it's a stat, then I'll bump that over to the next day. So then I do my weekly planning at the beginning of the week. When that happens, I do a weekly planning review with my husband personally as well. We talk about what's going on that week, who needs to be where, all of those kinds of things, so that when we get to that day, we already knew it was coming. So we already have prepared and planned for it, and makes for a much more smooth life personally, also professionally as well. So I'm super excited to share this with you. I hope you have found something that was inspirational or motivational to really help take the time to get yourself back into that empowered leader state as often as you can. So thanks for tuning in, and I look forward to talking to you next. We're going to be doing our daily review, and then we're going to do our monthly review from there. So have a great day, and we'll see you in the next video. So I have to say, look at these beautiful, not gardenias, what are they? Dahlias. Look at these beautiful dahlias. I have the opportunity to live surrounded by farms, and the farm across the street, our beautiful neighbors, have this incredible garden. They have eggs. I got a whole bunch of garlic from them, and they're putting their dahlias out in their farm stand. And this is the second bunch I've gotten already, and I just had to share it with you. Aren't they just, they're just so beautiful. So I've had them here on my desk, and it's just bringing so much joy and brightness into my office here. So I just thought I'd share that with you, and that's it. So have a great day. Talk to you later. Bye.